what is your biggest pet peeve when you're watching sports?
Definitely VAR, man. Just it takes the fun away from the sports.
Now you want to draw a line from someone's armpit to someone's toe.
Every VAR guy sitting at the back is suddenly a huge fan of trigonometry.
This 48 minutes goes on for over 2 hours. It's the
Like
dumbest
spinner.
rule in cricket.
Whole off spin with a leg spin action.
During the 6 ball over, at least let me see the fucking match.
When someone has an injury already.
That's like getting energy by having Farsan.
There was a recent correspondence that we got in with a VAR review. GUI, your 3 points from the last time have been overturned. There is no refute. You cannot review it again. Hi everyone and welcome back to another episode of All About Sports, the podcast, a podcast for fans, by the fans, where we cover as many sports as we can. You're joined today by our usual hosts, myself, Rishabh, we have Aniket,
Hey everyone, what up?
we got Mazhar,
Hey everyone.
and we got Shubham.
Hi guys.
So before we dive into this week's episode, do check out our last week's episode where we covered the French Open and reviewed the French Open as a whole. Do check it out if you're a tennis fan or in general want to learn about the French Open. Let's get into this week's topic now. This week's a really fun one for us because it's pretty open-ended. It's really all about our biggest pet peeves in sports. All of us have spent hours and hours on phones with friends complaining about referees and players and umpires and coaches, and it was just an opportunity for us to vent after a long week. So here's our just a broad overview. We're covering different sports. We'll just talk about some of the things that really annoy us when we watch a game. So totally open-ended. Malu, I'll go with you first. What is your biggest pet peeve when you're watching sports, whichever sport it is?
So for me, it's obviously going to be football, and within football, the introduction of VAR. I think that has been the most annoying thing for me since its very inception. I think, like, if I remember correctly, at the start of this season itself, there were some controversial decisions for, I think, against United or something like that. But yeah, like, I think VAR has taken the fun away from the game. Every time you score a goal, you have to wait for a few minutes to see if the goal was offside, onside. Also, not just VAR, even the way how penalties were given, like soft penalties were given because of VAR, like you would touch a player's hand and that's a penalty. The goalkeeper's line thing. So actually, what not just VAR, I think in general, some of the rule changes in football have started irritating me. That is the penalty decisions, the VAR. As a matter of fact, thinking about it right now, UEFA has announced that the away goal rule won't be there anymore. So I think I'm irritated about that too. But since that is not implemented yet, for me it's definitely VAR, man. Just it takes the fun away from the sport. So yeah, at least that's what I think. What do you guys think about it?
No, I was going to say
Drawing. The line
the
drawing
line.
is
Oh yeah.
just look at it. If I don't know were like referees earlier on some other otherworldly visual prowess, because the odd calls were wrong, but most of them were just generally correct, right? But now you want to draw a line from someone's armpit to someone's toe and then see if it barely crosses that line, what advantage are we talking about here? What advantage is a person getting by his big toe being offside? I mean, it's fine, but again, the line drawing is a time consuming bit. It's a game killer, like, to be
And
honest.
also for me, like, because Gui mentioned game killer, the most important thing any sport, and especially a sport like football, is about emotion. So when you score a goal, the emotion that you feel, that is what like all the fans really thrive on. And then when a player scores a goal and you have to wait for like 3 minutes for a VAR check or something, it really kills the excitement, kills the vibe. And this is for us sitting and watching the game on TV. But for the people in the stadiums, I think that's even more irritating. Like every time a goal is scored, you're unsure. Should I celebrate? Not celebrate? Look at the big screen. Wait for the VAR decision. I just think that's a load of rubbish, man.
No, they absolutely have to uninstall that line software altogether. Uninstall that feature. It's on ridiculous. And every VR guy sitting at the back is suddenly a huge fan of trigonometry. They're drawing lines from every angle. And the one thing I did want to ask you guys, I don't know how you feel about this. How do you think it's being managed in international tournaments versus club football? Because generally, I think it's a lot better in international tournaments. Like I thought FIFA, it was the World Cup last time was okay. Generally, I felt the Euros are going on right now. Generally, it's been okay. I think some of the questionable stuff happened in the Portugal Germany game, but barring that, generally it's okay. Like they're managing pretty quickly. It happens quite fast. I don't know. Somehow the domestic leagues, just especially FA, is not nailing it. I don't know what y'all think. Versus the domestic leagues versus these international tournaments. What and if it's been slightly different for you from a viewing perspective.
I think it's not just the domestic league. I think it's England versus every other country, every other nation, and obviously on the international stage. I just think I don't know. Yeah, actually, that's a good question. I don't know why England screws it up so much. And I'll tell you what, Premier League is the most followed league in the world. So for the league which is the most followed, it has the most screw ups also. So I think that's even more frustrating.
So I think it's slightly got to do with just the number of chances which you see across a 38 game league. You see it happen much more often as opposed to a knockout tournament. Maybe that's why it's on our mind so much, and also all these line drawing things, they aren't there in the international tournaments. I've not seen. Did has it happened in the
It's not.
Euros?
No,
Any
it's
lot-
not. They just do the
not.
replay. Now, I don't know what the back end referee is seeing, but the replay we see is just a slow motion, which I think is what it should be, dude. You can vaguely see from the slow motion. You're basically trying to catch if the referee didn't catch it because it happened too fast. Just slow it down and the referee can make a decision. Then little bit of his armpit hair is sticking out, then that's fine. Like the point of the rule is that there's not one banda standing way up front and getting the ball kicked up to him.
I think the only technology football should have ever implemented, which they have, and that's good, is goal line technology. Beyond that, I don't think you need VAR and all this nonsense. This is my personal take.
Ask Aston Villa about that. They were the happiest people when it didn't get implemented. We all know that game, Sheffield United, it was right. Well, yeah.
I think it was Sheffield. Yeah.
So I only the English. It was the FA that screwed it up again. So it was only the Premier League. But VAR again, guys. First episode when we started our podcast was this discussion, literally, about how it's failed, how miserable it's been. It's not gotten any better. You already spoke about all the handballs being given and all of that. Firstly, that handball rule is also bullshit. If it hits the hand by default in the penalty area, it can't be a goal, and all this nonsense that goes on if it's goal bound and all that bullshit. The other rule, which is really funny, and this I have to bring this up because this in the Copa America, Brazil were playing Colombia. Colombia were up 1-0, and Brazil, Firmino scores a goal in the 78th minute as the equalizer. What's funny about this is the ball hits the ref. The ball hits the ref in the build up to that play, so Colombia stop playing. The ref allows the play to go on because Brazil only had the ball. The cross comes in from Renan Lodi, and it's headed in by Firmino. These guys are going ballistic. Ospina comes running out of Colombia's goal. Cuadrado's in the face of the referee. The referee waves them off. And then everyone's confused as to why the goal stood. It goes to VAR. VAR says no clear and obvious error. It's a goal. The ball hit the fucking referee, man. Like, that was the first rule they changed. That was the rule where they said if the ball hits the ref, it's a drop ball. Right then and there. So, yeah, so the ref can't play it on. So, that was the basic rule. He allowed advantage because Brazil had the ball. Who made the rules? He made the rules on the spot. And VAR says, nahi bhai, chalte hai, chalne do, khelne do. It's a goal. And then what's funnier is then in the 100th minute of the game, it was 90 plus 10, Casemiro goes and scores the winner. So, can you imagine Colombian fans at that point? And poor guys really needed that win because now they're like not. I mean, this last game, I don't know what's happened or if the game's over or not, but they had to then. It was like sort of a must win in their last game to qualify for the quarterfinals of the Copa America. Which is again, firstly, one more thing I wanted to add. This is not a pet peeve, but it's such a stupid format. The Copa America, I mean, CONMEBOL, which is the South American Football Federation, they only have 10 countries in South America. So, and then they have quarterfinals straight. So only 2 teams get knocked out and they are 2 groups. So basically, you can finish fourth also and qualify out of 5 teams. It's literally like saying when we used to go for our running races, right? I finished fourth. How many runners were there? No one asked. There were four only. It's the same concept. So just saying that, I mean, football in general, Shubham, like you mentioned, I don't know what the hell is going on with their rules, with all these things, that away goal rule. My God, sorry, this was my venting at football, but I think the Copa America thing was interesting to share because I feel like a lot of people wouldn't have known about it.
It's a really good point because I didn't know that actually that the only 10 in this one gets knocked out, which is quite crazy. A general theme as a warning where we'll all start to get pretty frustrated. I think is the moral of the story because we're all so passionate about these. Gui, let me pass it to you, man. Sticking to any other pet peeves that you had, maybe something different than what Malu said.
So we mentioned how VAR stoppages are like a game killer, right? It really dulls a game. To me, what dulls an intense game of basketball are like timeouts. Like, I mean, strategy. Okay, I get it. If some team is, really crushing you, and then you call for a timeout, it's a strategic thing. I understand it. It's used well. I'm not.
Explain the
I'm
timeout
not
rule
out.
to me. Wait, what's the timeout rule exactly?
So
So
basically, you can call
you call for a
timeouts.
timeout. There are set
Anytime.
number of timeouts. Yeah.
And
Yes.
how many times in a game?
When the ball,
That's
not any time, when you have possession, when your team has possession of the ball,
correct.
or if the ball's gone out of bounds, regardless of which team has possession at that point in time.
You can call for 7 timeouts in regulation time.
Both teams have 7, so
Yeah,
14
Seven
both
each.
teams have
total.
full timeouts. Basically, are supposed to last only a minute, if I'm not wrong. But because of ads and all this rubbish that they actually last 2.5 minutes.
And a timeout is basically like just getting your strategy right and shit like that. Your
Yeah, like
tactics.
Yeah.
the IPL,
Yeah.
right? Strategic
IPL. Okay.
timeout,
Got it.
same
Got
system.
Yeah,
it.
but in the IPL, each team
Even
can
that
call a
shit.
time.
Sorry, but even that is absolute trash.
That's unnecessary, and that's done so that you can plug in ads. Let's be
Nay, it's
honest.
done for something else.
That, yeah, you want to plug in ads during that break, right? That's about it.
5,000 khaya,
Sorry.
5,000 khaya. Sorry.
Okay, it took me a second to get there. But yeah, it's like American sports. Even when I watch 1 minute football, American football, whatever like everyone listening is going to call it, American football. Let's go with that. Alright, it's just fascinating how before every important play, you can call a timeout, discuss strategy. I mean, to me, the beauty of a game like football is that you can't just call for a timeout, have huddle in, and all instructions get passed, and you yell it out to your players. Okay, no one's going to stop that. But you can't have like a proper coaching session mid game. It's even when those stops were announced, right? When uh, in the middle of each half you get like a small stoppage after things restarted after COVID. Uh, it was a strict guideline that you can't use it to uh, give out tactics. It's just for the rest because you're not used to playing those many games in that much in such a short amount of time, and that kind of keeps it to the point that players have to implement the strategy whatever it is. You are in control of the game right now. Before every important play, I don't think it really kills the game when you say that I this team has to score, like in say American football, you have to score a touchdown on this play only. This is the last play of the game. So this is the last play, most important play, and you're allowing them to have the benefit of the entire coaching staff. Like the coaching staff is going to basically give you a whole revision of the play. Makes no sense to me. Absolutely kills the game. And the number of timeouts which are allowed, it's bizarre. It's just bizarre. So many timeouts. And towards the end of every NBA game, it is just a timeout calling fest, right? Call for a timeout, commit a foul, call for a timeout. It's either of those things. Just do those things. And the last 5 minutes of a basketball game actually go on for like 20, approximately 20 minutes, which is longer than a whole quarter.
Yeah, just to put things into perspective, a basketball game, actually running time of a basketball game is 48 minutes, right? It's split into 4 quarters. and so it's 12 minutes each quarter. This 48 minutes goes on for over 2 hours, and it's just so frustrating. And it's such a fast sport. It's such an engrossing sport because it's end to end stuff. It's only 10 people playing the match, the entire match on court. Over that, now they have these stupid timeouts for literally, like, I understand when things go out of hand and like it's fine, but it's just like they should have a rule where you can't call timeouts only in the fourth quarter. Fourth quarter,
Yeah.
no timeouts. Set 5 timeouts for the first 3 quarters. After that, you cannot call for any timeouts in the fourth quarter. Then over that, now they have this new rule about referee reviews. So the refs
I
can
was going to
review
say-
refs can review decisions in the last quarter of the game because those are important decisions. Why the first quarter decisions aren't important suddenly? Every play counts, right? So then refs can review, and then even they take ages. Oh, it's very similar to VAR. Oh, ball hit this guy's small nail. Oh, this guy, it went off his jersey. It went off his fucking God knows what all. It scraped his nose. Who saw that? Bloody hell, you slow it down to 0.0004x. Yeah, fuck off, man.
It's
I'm tired of
crazy.
it. Like, that's
Not
a.
So that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. Bringing too much technology into the sport. That is not what sports is all about.
Exactly.
Sports is about like being in the moment, using your skill to like whatever help your team win, and you unnecessarily ghus out technology now. It is not called
Human
for.
errors are the fun of sport. I've always felt that. Like, yeah, I agree. Some decisions were bizarre, like Drogba's offside goal for Chelsea to win the league. But again, one-off cases. I'd rather accept those one-off cases than have this
In
line
general,
drawing bullshit.
the referees are very good. The referees and the way they call offsides, any decision, they are really good. So every like I don't know, like 10 games or 15 games, if you make one error, dude, come on, you're humans at the end of the day, right? So I just feel like bringing in too much technology is just killing the sport. I don't know much about basketball, but for football for sure.
So I think there's a happy medium which we've not hit. We've gone like from one end to complete flip the switch, and I think there is a happy medium. I think for basketball, really the simple answer is there are too many options. There are 7 timeouts per team, which is 14 timeouts. There is one team review per team, which is 2 more, and then referees can also do timeouts on top of that. And if there isn't a timeout in a quarter, there's a mandatory timeout that's put in place so that they can show ads. So it's absolutely infuriating. So very rarely will you have less than those 17 stops. That it's like there are no games where, say for example, if you don't do DRS, all the decisions are clean. Then nothing like that can happen because they essentially end up taking mandatory breaks. So it's just far too many in basketball and absolutely infuriating. That's why I absolutely loved when Ty Lue, his entire Clippers team was like, dude, we need a timeout. And I think Ty Lue forgot which team he was coaching for and just didn't call a timeout. His entire team, his entire coaching staff is yelling at him, going, please take a timeout. And Ty Lue is looking somewhere else. So I had a lot of respect for Ty Lue. I think he was fighting back against the timeouts, which is why I really appreciated Ty Lue. But
Yeah, I know that Krishnan, when you mentioned you had that conversation with him back in December, he's really.
yeah, he was very against it. Yeah. And that's he said actually mid game, I'm gonna completely forget what I'm doing in the game altogether.
No, in fact, talking about all these timeouts and stuff like that, then I would say tennis has done pretty well. Yeah, like every player 3 decisions and that's it. I think then that's kudos to the game, to the sport, to the governing body that they like. Tennis uses technology very well, but they don't push it where it becomes annoying.
Yeah.
You have like
And I
three
just think the nature of the I just think the nature of the technology, tennis is just benefited from the fact that the nature of the technology which you need to use is kind of unquestionable. There is no judgment involved. Either the ball clipped the line, did not clip the line.
No, but Gui, imagine in tennis bringing something like a timeout where the player can go discuss with his coach, what should I do, what I should not do.
Tennis on the other hand, tennis is not even allowed to communicate with the box. So they're pretty strict about. Serena got like a point penalty for, I mean, she didn't ask for the coaching, right? The coach just indicated something. So she got a penalty for that. So in those regards, yeah, there is not only timeouts which are allowed are for like medical purposes in tennis, which is great to be honest. And the tech is also almost flawlessly executed. You can't complain.
And I think it draws like two interesting comparisons. I think one is, I think in general American sports, there is a a desire to have like a higher level of play almost. So they want coaches to be involved. The same thing goes for American football, right? There are lots of timeouts because you want coaches to be involved. And as a result, the complexity of play is quite intense. Even I'd say the same for NBA because coaches are so heavily involved. Like even for one thing that I found crazy when I started watching football is that the quarterback can actually have all the plays written on basically a notebook on his hand. And all the plays are basically written down, and he can call it as that happened, which was bizarre to me. So there's a desire to want coaches to be involved. I think, which is why they have so many timeouts. Now we can question whether we like that or not, but I think that's where the distinction comes up, like non-US versus US. And the second comparison, I think, is like you said, Gui, sports where it's almost mathematical. I think cricket and tennis, you only can actually need a referee at the back end to check this. At this stage of our technology, it can be automated. If someone asks for a specific review for LBW, edges, in cricket, all the guys saying, "Acha, play it again. Okay, play it reverse. Now play it back." Now they're not doing anything. The person at the back is not doing anything. So cricket and tennis, it's formulaic at this point. Like it could be an automated system. Whereas with football and basketball, what's complicated is we haven't gotten to that stage just yet. So it's very manual. And with the manual, we started to over focus on like very small things that aren't really relevant in the bigger picture of the game. It's just too much over analysis of like minor things that probably aren't worth it.
So two things I wanted to add to what you said, Krishna. One thing is why you can't compare cricket and tennis and football and basketball are fouls. It comes back to that. Fouls are the main thing. You don't have fouls in tennis and cricket. But tennis has done a great job in terms of firstly setting times for serving, so you can't waste too much time, otherwise you lose a point. They've just set comprehensive rules, and this is the Bible. You follow it. Even the same things happened with ICC and DRS as well. My only serious pet peeve, I'm going to go back to this now, in cricket, is that stupid thing pitched outside leg stump. How on earth is any leg spinner to get a wicket otherwise? Like logically, just think about it. It's the dumbest rule in cricket.
Leg spinners are only supposed to bowl googlies from outside the off stump, which turn inside.
So basically, off spinner, Ben. You have to just be off spinners.
Bowl off spin with a leg spin action. Okay, bowl off spin with a leg spin action. or do you remember that one ad on Indian television where the ball bounces 3 times and then one ball, it first bounces off spin, next bounces a leg spin. And then
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, off spin, leg spin, or a ball. No, but genuinely, for me, that's the biggest pet peeve in cricket. Outside leg stump. There's no sense. Like how stupid is that rule? I know many people have said umpires call and they get frustrated, but I think that's brilliant. That's
fair. I think that's fair. That's a
like
perfect level of
Shubham said,
discretion.
yeah, like Shubham said, I think more often than not, umpires and referees are right. Yes, recently in cricket, the standards of umpiring have dropped significantly because now I think they know that they can afford that margin for error because it can get reviewed. So they are also, I think, a bit more relaxed about making decisions in that sense. So maybe that's why the quality has dropped. But that outside leg stump rule needs to change, man. It is just not fair to the bowlers. It's anyway such a batsman's game. So what are your thoughts on that? Or if you have any other pet peeve in cricket?
One pet peeve in cricket. Now see, like you guys would know much more about cricket than me. Is I wish cricket had substitutions. I really wish the sport of cricket substitutions were allowed. Now I understand like this. Like I don't know, this is a pet peeve because this is actually not a part of cricket. So I'm trying to imagine something that's not a part of the sport. But I just feel like I wish substitutions were allowed, where like you could substitute, like have 2 substitutions in the game, change your bowler or something like that. I don't know why.
Maru, give this one a thought, okay? Do you want to have like a batting team and a bowling team, like an offense team, like in American football, offensive and defensive? What do you think about that? 11 batsmen when you're batting and 11 bowlers when you're bowling. Oh, that would be crazy. Okay, 1 wicket keeper when you're bowling. That's okay.
Yeah, 11 wicket keeper lineup, I don't think would kill it. I was going to say, Malu, I was going to say exactly Gui's point, which is I love cricket and to some extent football as well because players have to do both things, kind of. Like, there's some responsibility to be in the field, and it's kind of one lineup, which is what I love about cricket. Though I do, the one thing I'm a little bit I don't like as much is that we can't get runouts like the dude who can be the runner. We've stopped. I think that is now stopped. And it's not that I have a huge pet peeve with it. I just loved watching it because there was so much confusion and so many runouts because of it. So I think they need to be a little more flexible, which I think they're learning to be if there are serious injuries. So I think if there's like a bowling injury, I think they're still figuring out the rules when that happens. I think substitution in the case of injuries, now obviously they have the concussion rule. They need to be a slightly more evolved. But I personally like GUI, like that it's the same team and they have to kind of figure out how, like, it's because so much of the fun for me for cricket is like, who are we going to go with 4 bowlers, 5 bowlers, which I kind of enjoy, to be honest.
I'm with Shubham on this one. I know you know how much of a classic cricket fan I am, but I think I like what Shubham thought of. Because I think it'll add a good element to the sport, and you're going to use a real life example of this: the concussion substitution that India had when basically Jadeja had a concussion. Chahal came in, took 4 wickets, got man of the match. He wasn't playing the game otherwise. So I actually like that option. Maybe not have a full bowling lineup and a batting lineup, but maybe allow 3 players or 2 players to switch at the innings end or something like that. I'm not saying it can be a rolling substitution or something. So like you play 9 batsmen, for example, and then you can remove 2 batsmen for the second innings and bring in 2 bowlers. I think it's a cool thing. It can definitely add to the excitement of the game.
I think cricket will become much more hotly debated if you do this. Like,
Isn't that
what
a
I
good
feel
thing?
about cricket now, yeah, it's a great thing because what I feel right now about cricket in general, or at least how I view it, like after a point I stopped watching cricket because none of the players was watching as a child were there, and nobody seemed like exciting enough, as dominating as the Indian team is still. Uh, just not the same, and like conversations around cricket have just died down. That's again for me, and I think that would really like spice up the debate about cricket in general. Like, this was a tactical masterclass there. Okay, great. Now think about how much it brings in, right? You are playing in the evening, that's due, but in the first inning there's likelihood of like more due, less due, how many, there's so many permutations which open up if you do something like that. It'll be damn fun. Like, that's a great idea if you ask me.
So interestingly, actually, there was a super sub because I remembered this. I don't know if you remember. For a brief period, there was a 12th man super sub, and you had to pick the super sub. So you had to pick your lineup that would play the inning before the toss. So you had a huge advantage if you won the toss. So if you won the toss, you could pick, like, if I pick my super sub to be a batsman, I'll probably pick to bat first. So it was quite interesting. I remember this doing. So I will admit, it probably will add some. It might add some spice to try out something like that. I mean, this is what IPL is for, right? I mean, IPL is where we can test out all these different rules and see if it kind of works. So maybe they'll try it out in IPL next time. And Maz, honestly, I'll be completely honest. I thought it was a very logical rule for LBW until I never thought about leg spinners. I'll completely be honest. I completely ignored thinking about leg spinners. And as you were saying it, I was like, oh my gosh, that is such a good point. How can a leg spinner ever pitch it not outside the leg stump? We will always be pitching outside the leg stump to get an LB. Which is a great point, Maz. I didn't even think about it. It's a superb point. And the rules are different from, like, if you're a left-hander and a right-handed bowler, right? So you could make a similar case maybe for leg spinner specifically. If you registered as a leg spinner, that could be something that they could change. I wanted to quickly go to my pet peeve, which is probably a very easy one for everyone to relate to. It's ads. It's really simple. I know that the quality of the telecasts we're watching now are because of ads, but there are some sacred rules that ads have broken that absolutely breaks my heart. Number one, in cricket, when the ad goes beyond the first ball of the over, that is a sacred rule of ads. You are there in between the overs. You can't cut into the over. Or when they cut into the ad too early before it like hits the boundary rope. That drives me absolutely nuts. The second one, this is again an American sports thing. I noticed this for, like, the halftime shows that they have here, specifically in the US. They do this absolutely obnoxious thing where they go to ads, they come back, they just show one tweet and then they go back to ads. It is so infuriating. This is in basketball. I've noticed this even with the Euros. The Euros, they'll just come back from the ad. They'll say, in the previous game, Portugal won 1-0. And then they go back to ads. So absolutely drives me nuts. I'll quickly open it up to everyone. I'm sure this is an easy one to relate to, but anything that drives you nuts about any ads?
Yeah, first of all, the fact that I'm watching a house, which is no sorry, paint being advertised by a celebrity between, game of cricket, and they are mentioning that you can erase, marks from this if you have children. I don't want to know. And you're eating into the first ball. You're eating into the last ball. What rubbish! Even this is again a very commonplace occurrence in F1 where you miss a lot of overtaking. Okay, maybe not in the last 1 or 2 years because there really isn't much overtaking to watch, but 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 ads cut into a lot of good sports content. Like what do you want me to say if I miss a really good move? I know I can watch it on replay, but you already know it's happened. Now what?
With ads, one thing that I find frustrating, and this I've noticed in the IPL, like if I'm watching the IPL on my full screen, suddenly a widget will come and the screen, like the action screen will become small and like half the screen goes in a widget. Or sometimes the match is going on and on the field, obviously there's some brand ka logo, some animation will start, some nonsense will happen. That is very frustrating, man. At least when I'm watching the game, you guys are cutting to ads because, okay, now this is your ad duration, it's not 15 seconds of a show and I get it. But during the 6-ball over, at least let me see the fucking match. Don't bring in ads in my television screen while the match is going on, while the bowler is bowling, while the batsman is batting. So that is irritating for me.
Exactly. When someone gets injured, they put Volini there every time. When someone has an injury, Volini.
Because they're fixing a sports injury by rubbing Volini. Correct. Yes. All sports injuries can be solved by Volini.
That's like getting energy by having Farsan.
I was going to say that was probably all of our school experiences with when we went to the nurse with, anything. Your leg is also cut off, you have a fracture.
Crocin.
Or crocin. But that's a pretty quick one, guys. We know what's coming up next. This is all our pet peeves. Obviously, drop in the comments or just IM us, whatever you want to do. Like, what are your other pet peeves that drive you nuts? We'd be happy to talk about it with you. But with that, let's get to the next section, which is the quiz section. Now, it's a pretty heated quiz this time. I am behind. I lost the first quiz. I still owe a punishment. I'm aware of it. I need to do my punishment. But this is our second round of quizzes. Currently, Malu is in last place, but there was a recent correspondence that we got in with a VAR review. Gui, your 3 points from the last time have been overturned. We spoke to FIFA, and there was a commissioner.
It's 4
Sorry,
points.
4 points. For two reasons. One was the Manchester City, the question from last time, if you do go check it out, has been overviewed. And then one extra point just to make it a good competition. That is what the board has decided. And there is no refute. You cannot review it again. It's just been taken out, Gui. Just to make things fun, guys. So the current scores, the way they stand, it's Malu 5 points, myself 10 points, Gui with the 4-point deduction now goes down to 10 points, and Muzzle with an easy lead at 12 points. So guys, there are a few questions here, but a lot of them are kind of multiple choice. So a lot of opportunities to get kind of multiple points. The first one is an NBA one. Who are the top 3 people with the most NBA technical fouls? Now, I'll allow Gui and Muzz, you can name 3 people, and as many as you get right, you get that many points. I'll give you a hint, there are no active players. Just to make things even, Malu, you don't have to name the players. If you'll get to name 3 states in America, and if they played most famously in a city in that state, you get a point. Just name 3 states. Just pick randomly 3 states to pick, and how many ever are in that grouping, you get.
I can help you with this one, Shubham. So I'll go first. Hopefully
Yeah, and you
you
name
help
the teams. Name the teams also to help him out, just so that we can.
me. Yeah, no. I mean, I'll name the. Yeah, okay, fine. Let's see.
Yeah.
I'm going with Dennis Rodman.
Okay.
Chicago.
Chicago. If you give the city also, it's fine. City and or state is fine. City and or state is fine. Yeah.
Then I will have to go with. I'm going with Wallace. And
Rashid or Ben? Rashid or Ben Wallace?
Which one was he? Ben Wallace, right?
The one I think. Okay, let's say Ben slash Rashid.
Non-Afro.
Chalo, Ben slash
The non-Afro.
Rashid.
The non-Afro.
Okay, that's Rashid. Non-Afro is Rashid. No, it is Rashid. Non-Afro is Rashid.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Ben
Rashid.
slash Ben
Okay,
slash
fine.
Rashid.
Wallace.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah,
go
yeah,
with
yeah.
Wallace.
Yeah.
And tough one, yeah. Wilt. I'm going with Wilt.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Chicago, Detroit, and now
And Philadelphia slash
Minneapolis /
Yeah.
no, Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. Yeah.
yeah. So I have given my answers.
Anything different? Anyone else you'd like to add?
I don't really have a guess here, but if I had to change, like I don't think Rodman would have gotten those many technicals because sometimes you randomly don't show up for games, so wo game ka technical incorrect. So I'm just going to say I'm going for just for the sake of saying it because the Bulls team had some really hard guys. So I'm going to say Pippen. Just I really doubt it's him. I don't know. Like I can't say. I'm going to say the other two are the same. I'm going to say Shaq also, but highly doubt Shaq got those many technicals. Even though he played for a very long time, I don't think he was notorious for getting techs. Not as notorious as Embiid. Just saying.
So wait, what are your three Gui families?
Pippen,
Shaq,
Shaq, and Wallace.
Pippen, Shaq, Wallace. Okay. And so Pippen is also Chicago, Malu, and Shaq is the most famous is LA. Yeah. So you're saying
Miami,
Detroit?
Orlando.
Yeah, but I'm saying the most famous.
Detroit,
like,
Chicago, and what was Mazhar's third one?
Mazhar's third one was also LA, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. With Will Chamberlain. Was Will Chamberlain, which is I think Philly or Minneapolis?
Sorry, who? Wilt was Philly and Los Angeles. Yeah.
Okay.
California.
So you have to pick one.
California.
California. So guys, you all get 1 point for Rasheed Wallace, and so Malu, you also get it for Detroit. The answers which I thought were kind of interesting. I would have thought like a Dennis Rodman or something. It was Karl Malone, interestingly, with 332, played most famously for Utah. Charles Barkley with 329, with Phoenix / Philadelphia most famously, and obviously played for a bunch of other teams too. And Rasheed Wallace third with 317, most famously having played for the Pistons.
My God, Chuck. I think Chuck's voice only got him technicals.
No, I think he did. He definitely, and I think he's fought a fan also, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a few things. I think. So let me move into cricket and tennis because I think those are the ones that I found the least questions for. But here's an interesting one. So this was stat record as of 2017, so a little bit older, and it's something that we didn't really talk about too much. But slow over rates, right? A lot of teams have had slow over rates. I have stats on who the two lowest teams were. If you name either one, you get a point. The hint I'll give you is it's not India.
Sri Lanka, Pakistan.
Okay, I'm going with Australia. I know they've been punished a lot in recent times, so that's why I'm going with Australia. And second one, I'm going with Sri Lanka.
Okay, fair enough. Malu, what are you thinking?
Australia, Pakistan.
Interesting. The Sri Lanka was actually the right way to go. So it's England, interestingly, and Sri Lanka. Now, this is as of 2017, so slightly outdated. But Sri Lanka definitely was one of them. So it was England who've been punished by 2017 and were punished 18 times, and Sri Lanka 17 times. So Mazhar, Gui, you both get a point. Malu, it's heating up a little bit for you, huh, boss? But let me switch over to tennis. This is a pretty basic one. Closest to answer gets it. What is the year that tennis started utilizing Hawkeye in their decision making?
I'm going to say 2006.
2006, Gui. Okay.
I have no idea. I'm going with 2011.
Okay. Malu?
So there's 2006 and there's 2011.
Correct.
I
Malu is very smartly staying quiet. He's staying quiet.
Actually, I don't think it's 2011. I think it is 2007.
2007, Malu very close. The right answer was Gui's answer, 2006. Gui, bang on. 2006 is the absolute correct answer.
I had no idea. Man. I had
Yeah,
no
it
idea.
was, it was earlier than I thought too, actually, to be very honest. It's earlier than I thought, to be very honest.
I was initially thinking 2003, but then when we started 2007, Mazhar 2011, I was like, it can't be 2003 for sure. I'm way off.
Very luckily, I remember that DRS was implemented. Basically, the whole debate around it being implemented through BCCI, ICC when we were doing the BCCI episode. 2008 was the DRS implementation year, so I was sure it has to be before DRS came in. That's why I just did 2 years.
Nice, Gui. Well played. Well played.
So good.
So, Malu, hopefully this will help you even the playing field now. And moving on to the football section of the questions. Which player in the Premier League has received the most yellow cards for diving since the 2015-16 season up to 2019? But I'll give you a couple of hints.
No. Firstly, how is this going to even out anything? How do you get someone to know that answer?
Let me give you a couple of hints. It's not from a Big Six team currently. He does not play for the Big Six team currently, but he's still in the Premier League. He very, very briefly played for Manchester United, and he's a winger. It is a player who's still in the Premier League, does not play for a top 6 club, but very briefly, very briefly, was with Manchester
Zaha.
United. So you're saying Wilfred Zaha? Okay.
I'm still thinking. I'm just thinking out loud right now.
Okay. So not the final. And it's a winger.
That's a good shout, Shubham. I'm just saying. I don't have to stress, so.
I was thinking about United.
He was between 2015 and 19, but very briefly played for United. So Zaha was there for like one season, and then after that he was shipped. So he briefly actually briefly played because I think he played like a few games.
Hey, Mazhar, don't save your answer like that. Yeah? You also think out loud. What is this?
That's why
Go for Zaha. Yeah.
Okay, Zaha for Malu, Zaha for Mazhar.
Yeah, I can't think of any other United wingers.
Exactly. Like, I don't know any like United wingers who are still in the Prem. Like if I had to,
and not in the top 6, playing for a club outside the top 6.
Oh, no, not possible. No, Sanchez also very unlikely because he's not in the Prem anymore. What unlikely? He's not in the Prem anymore. Zaha only. Yeah, it has to be. I can't think of
Perfect.
any.
Malu, very good job. I was wondering if people will remember. It is 100% Zaha. Very good job. He's gotten 4 yellow cards. The simulation.
I think only Shubham should get this point.
Yeah.
That's not a bad call. What do we vote? Malu gets that point? Because I don't think anyone would guess it if not for it.
No chance. I didn't even think of
Perfect.
it. I'm being honest.
Malu gets that point. Very good job, Malu. So now same question, but from a team basis. Which club received the most yellow cards for simulation in the same time period? And again a hint, it's not any of the traditional top 6.
I have no idea, man. These are such hard questions, yeah. I can't even think of teams right now. I'm blanking on the Premier League teams also, yeah. Southampton.
Okay, Southampton.
Only.
So Zaha for Crystal Palace got 4 yellow cards, and he is the single player with the most yellow cards, correct, between 2015 to 2019.
Correct.
So I'm hoping some more players in Crystal Palace would have fucked up. So and Crystal Palace have been consistently in the Premier League. So they could have amassed some more yellow points. So Crystal Palace, given that Zaha got the most, so I think Crystal Palace.
Malu, perfect lodging out. It is Crystal Palace. You're catching up. It is Crystal Palace. Well, I told you, yeah, football will start to get closer and closer. So Crystal Palace, that's another point for Malu. So it's getting a little bit closer. So same question, but there are 2 teams that are tied for second place. And both teams are from the traditional top 6. So traditional top 6. So like Manchester City, Manchester United, Chelsea,
yellow
Arsenal,
cards.
Tottenham, Liverpool. Yes, exact same time period, exact same question. But the second are tied between two of the top six, or the traditional top six. Who do you all have? Yeah, who's name one of the two, but you only get one. You can only name one.
See, I have a feeling.
Liverpool.
Okay, Liverpool from us.
They have Salah.
Mane, Salah, Firmino. Before that, Slippy G. Sorry, had to.
I don't know, man. I think even I will probably go for Liverpool only.
Liverpool. Gui, very good job. It was actually the Spurs and Arsenal tied for 9, but the next level down was tied for 6, Watford, Liverpool and United. So very good guess. It was actually Tottenham. So I think, Malu, you are now at 8 points, I want to say? You're at 8 points, right?
Yeah,
So
I got
basically
2 points right now.
you need 2 to overtake. So let's make it a little bit interesting. The 2 final questions left, each worth 2 points. We'll make it a little bit interesting. So the VAR decisions in 2020-2021, there was a ranking done of which teams benefited most from the decisions that were overturned and which team was hurt the most. So now this is not about whether the decision was right or not, irrespective. Which team was basically hurt the most by VAR overturns and who was hurt the least by VAR overturns? So that's the question. Now it's obviously like there are 20 teams, so it's hard. So even if you guess one of the 2 bottom or one of the 2 top, you just have to tell me which one it is. You get it right. So who was hurt the most by VAR overturns?
Most hurt by VAR. Okay, I'll go last. I'm sure of this one.
If Jeopardy were hosted by Krishnan, every contestant would earn money.
Motivated at least.
So I'm going to go with most benefited Liverpool.
Okay.
Most hurt, I'm just going to say Arsenal because I was personally very hurt by it. So,
I would think the team that benefited most was Liverpool.
Yep.
But the team that was hurt the most. I need to think for this year.
Okay.
Most hurt, Arsenal, 100%. The most benefited, I think, was Burnley. I think Arsenal was the most hurt for sure, and most benefited was, I've got to say Burnley.
Okay.
This is me now getting down to really cheap levels. But I think Buzzer was very confident about Arsenal. And I've got no clue. So I'm going with Buzzer's Arsenal.
Okay.
And I think I should stick to Liverpool only. 2020, 2021. So that is this season that got over, right? 2020, 2021.
Correct.
I think the benefit is most from VAR. Na? Actually, let me go with United and Arsenal.
So United benefited most, you're saying, or least?
Most.
Most and least is?
Arsenal, like he said.
So interestingly, least was a 3-way tie. So if you name any one of these teams, you're good. Between, and again, this is not whether the decision was right or wrong, just did the overturn hurt them or Liverpool, West Brom, and Arsenal were the 3 teams that got hurt the most by VAR. 2 teams that benefited the most. Muzzer, Burnley was 1.
Yes!
Fantastic.
Good. Yes.
And Fulham was 2nd. So
I
Muzzer, now
get
you get 2 points.
I get 4 points.
So I'm a little confused. I think a joint punishment is what it's going to be between me and Malu, because he got 3 points before this plus 2, so we're both stuck at 10.
No, so now we'll have a tiebreaker and we will come up with the tiebreaker. Gui and I will come up with the tiebreaker for the next round.
Perfect. Okay, so we have a tiebreaker. It's started to decide between us. But with that, really good job. Muzzer again coming in clutch with the double point plays at the end. Very, very well played. Good guesses. A very good guess on Burnley. I would not have guessed that. But with that, Dhruv, thanks so much again for a great episode. If you are listening, do like it if you enjoy this episode. Do share it with everyone else who enjoys sports. Leave a comment. Let us know what are other topics you'd like for us to cover, any other pet peeves that you have in sports. But with that, signing off, and we'll see you next week. Bye.